room is on the top floor.
It's perfect. I love it. If I could live any place and any time, I'd live here. In London. In the 60s. Last night, I saw something in my dreams. There was a girl.
And you are?
Sandy.
I got this kind of gift. I can see people, places, things others can't.
This is the closest most people ever get to their dreams.
They're not just dreams.
Jack, I don't want to do this.
You think you can just walk away?
They really happened.
What did you see?
Do you believe in ghosts?
Hello and welcome to this What Do You Want to Watch Spoilercast for Edgar Wright's latest feature film, Last Night in Soho. I'm actually probably joining me today, Dylan Blight.
Hello, I was in Soho last night.
I don't think there is a Soho in Australia from what I'm aware of.
There is in Tassie.
There is?
Yeah.
South Hobart.
Nah, I'm just fucking with you.
And also joining us, Radio Watson's Buddy Watson.
Thanks for having me, guys. Ever since you invited me to be on this discussion a couple of weeks ago, I've been counting down the days, hours, and minutes. So it's finally here, and I can't wait to talk about Last Night in Soho.
I mean, the anticipation is what we really want for our guests to be excited about. So yeah, let's just jump into it. So please be aware we'll be freely discussing anything and everything about the plot themes and ending of the film. So if you haven't watched it, come back later. It's currently in cinemas everywhere in Australia. But I think we can all agree you should go check it out. So with that said, let's jump into our discussion of Last Night in Soho, directed by Edgar Wright, screenplay by Edgar Wright and Krysty, Wilson-Cairns, story by Edgar Wright, starring Thomasin, McKenzie, Anya Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith, Michael Ajao, Diana Rigg, and Terence Stamp. An aspiring fashion designer is mysteriously able to enter the 1960s, where she encounters a dazzling wannabe singer. However, the glamour is not all it appears to be, and the dreams of the past start to crack and splinter into something far darker. Buddy, you and I both watched this film a few weeks ago now, unfortunately at the Brisbane International Film Festival. What do you think of Last Night in Soho?
I really liked it. I loved it. I'm a bit of an Edgar Wright fanboy, but not to the point where I'm kind of dismissive or unaware of some of the shortcomings that people find in his work. But I seem to get suckered in by a lot of the smoke and mirrors of what he's able to do when with shot composition, cinematography, just all that brilliance, and then soundtracks. He's been impeccable with soundtracks. So I seem to get lost in a lot of that, whereas some of the more kind of structural or narrative shortcomings or stuff like that might bring it down for others. Sometimes I overlook that, or I can get lost into the other whole package of it. So I really liked it.
Yeah, I was also a pretty big fan, even though, it's a little bit horror-ish, which isn't usually my genre. Also a big Edgar Wright fan. I think it's interesting because obviously this is the biggest departure from the rest of his catalogue. Obviously a much darker film, female leads for the first time. Very few laughs in this film. There's a handful, but it's definitely not a comedy in any stretch of the imagination. But really enjoyed it. Dylan, you're fresh out of the cinema after hearing me and Buddy talk about mention how good it is on various podcasts and chats. What did you think of Last Night in Soho?
Yeah, I really liked it. I mean, it's different. It's not your typical Edgar Wright thing. It's definitely the most... this may be a really weird, redundant way to say it, but this is the most Tarantino Edgar Wright film he's done. It feels less like Edgar Wright doing a more a parody homage to films and genres he likes, and more of a film that's very heavily inspired by things he likes, but it's very much its own thing, which is usually how Tarantino's things feel like. They're inspired by a bunch of films he likes, but they don't feel like they're trying to parody them. They just feel like they're heavily inspired by, and that's what this feels more in line with. It also feels like a weird sort of trip where I know there's like a lot of themes and stuff that sort of poke to the top, but the number one just seems to be him being like, look, I love old shit. It's okay, but sometimes there's bad shit there too. That seems like the number one thing, which is interesting. The acting is really great. Obviously, the two leads are fantastic. The soundtrack is like the number one thing. Like, as soon as I got the car, Spotify, Last Night Soho soundtrack, let's go, baby! Straight onto that shit, so that was good. Obviously, cinematography is great. I have some issues with it not going, I guess, full horror, or like sort of being a little bit scarier once it starts going down that route in the second half. I feel like some of the whatever you're gonna call them, mannequin monster things, could have been done in a way to make them a bit more terrifying. They sort of lose their mystique because they're sort of everywhere and you start seeing them so much. So that was the one sort of thing I would like to change. But overall, I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess interesting way to break it down. How do we feel about how do we enjoy Thomasin McKenzie as Eloise? I think, she's very, very young. Apparently she's only 18 in this movie, so that's kind of crazy. But yeah, she kind of, is the centerpiece. A young person who, it seems like, is able to see ghosts is why she's having this experience. Obviously, she sees her mother at the start of the film, even though she's passed away. Great opening as well, like her dancing around in that newspaper dress. That was a really cool way to introduce her love of 60s music and that kind of stuff. So yeah. But I think, in that second half, she's it's hard to stay on board with her a little bit when she's kind of being crazy,
stabbing people in the face,
nearly stabbing people in the face, and kind of just running from place to place. It's kind of an interesting character, I think.
Yeah, at the start, I thought she was really good, and I think she plays that kind of innocent, growing up, kind of almost naive to how the world works, being in that country town, and kind of being sheltered from everything quite well, and you see that kind of when she gets introduced to being in London for the first time.
When she gets introduced to the real villain of this movie, Jocasta.
Absolutely. Until she is thrown into the victim status later on, and you kind of feel sorry for her because she almost got stabbed. But I think kind of the fish out of water, being a bit sheltered and naive, and kind of small fish in a big pond type exposure, and then kind of the cab driver kind of hitting on her, and life's not going to be as easy as what she thought. I think that played out really well. But then, yeah, like you were saying before, Dylan, and later on in the movie when she kind of goes almost a little bit psychotic, and they're kind of playing into her mental health or mental illnesses as what her mother might have committed suicide as she got overwhelmed in London herself for the same thing, and whether these visions are actually ghosts or her own mental health type stuff. And then she starts almost stabbing people or having breakdowns in the middle of the thing. That's when it kind of jumped the shark a little bit for me. I wasn't as I stopped because I felt sorry for her and sympathetic for her cause, but then it became less so as she became a little bit more unhinged to unreasonable levels. So I was like, we still want to like her, but the whole stabbing and the thing, and just some things got out of hand a little bit better. But overall, I really liked her performance. I thought she was great.
Yeah, she's probably she's been in a bunch of my favorite movies over the last few years, so she's certainly, whoever her agent is, I guess, is doing good, because True History of the Kelly Gang, obviously my favorite film of the year, and then was it a couple years before that, Leave No Trace, which I watched after doing my top for that year, but then and then seeing a lot of people rave about it, and then watching that, and then that would have definitely been in my top 3 for that year if I'd redone it, because that film's fantastic, and it's literally just her and I can't remember the dude's name, but it's just
Ben Foster. Oh no, Ben Foster.
No.
I'm thinking the other Joaquin Phoenix film.
That film's fantastic, if anyone hasn't watched that, by the way. But yeah, she plays very similar roles in all of these films. I don't want to say she's been typecast just yet, but she does play a lot of these sort of quite timid, fish out of water type roles. And that's obviously, I would say that she was casting this off the back of people watching her in these other films, which suits it for this role. She's really good in it. I certainly don't blame her for the way the film goes towards the end. Like, that's not an acting choice, that's a script choice. But no, she's really, really good, and you definitely are on board with her for 99% of the film, because the one time where she's running around with the scissors, and I know as an audience member, I'm like, she's seeing things, but there's people there, and I'm like, if you stab someone, I'm going to be so annoyed of the direction this film's taking right now. So I was glad that it got pulled away, because I was about to get really annoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. So then I guess we switch over to the Sandy side of the story. It's like, oh baby, how do we feel about like the introduction of the 1960s? Because I feel like that was like one of the first trailers was pretty much almost taken straight out of the film, of her walking into 1960 Soho, big thunderball show outside the
tap
theater
on the mirror or whatever.
Yes.
Like the ding or whatever. Yeah.
That sequence is like amazing, especially when you consider like everything in that is pretty much done practically, and in Soho, like the actual location, which is crazy from what I've heard.
I want to know, I don't know if this has been said, do you know, or else I want to watch behind the scenes, like, were they both on set and they've just...
Yes.
Okay, good, yeah, because it felt like that most of the time. It felt like there was the scene where, in the scene where she's first meets Jack and they're like making out in the phone booth or whatever, and then you see in the mirror that Thomasin's like making out with another Jack or whatever. I was like, I think that's a Matt Smith double, like the hairline looks a little bit off. So that explains why, because that was the moment my brain started going, oh, I think they're both there.
It would be a bit weird if you're like, Matt Smith, can you just make out with her in this one? And you also make out.
Yeah.
Sure, we're doing everything else practically, but this thing we need to do, we need to get proper,
It was the hair. Something gave it away for me.
Yeah.
But no, the 60s is certainly like the standout marketing point, and also the most lavish sort of from a cinematography and production point of view. Everything from the costumes to the cars and everything. Even that first time that camera swoops in and was it, which I can't remember, Thunderball? I don't know.
Yeah, it's Thunderball's a movie.
Yeah, Thunderball's like there, like you get a big vibe for, and again, I think this does come back to, this is Edgar Wright in love. This is from a director-writer point of view where he loves this time period, and Thomasin McKenzie's character is almost like, without the he didn't want to grow up to design costumes as far as I was aware, but he certainly loves this time period as much as she does, and maybe there's even something to be said about maybe he does have a family member who like got him really into that sort of stuff in the music. I don't know, but that intro sequence.
His parents had like a bunch of 60s records that nobody else in the family listened to but him. So
that would explain. Yeah,
it really feels weird nostalgia for it.
Yeah, it feels personal, and you can tell that as you're watching it.
Yep.
But yeah, the 60s stuff is all spot on, and I love it. It's a great time, and it's also interesting because you see a lot of 60s American time period in movies. You don't often see 60s Britain other than or even any. Oh yeah, I guess I was about to say the only time you see like older British time period usually is it's a war. You never see like just general London, the vibes of that time.
There's like a handful of different ones, but
but it's not like a prominent Hollywood or movie period to be set movies in. Yeah, so I love it from a production point. And the costumes are all fantastic. Music's awesome. The dancing sequence is fantastic. Like Pulp Fiction vibes there, by the way.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought the transitions into the 60s, that first transition with going under the bed sheet and then kind of bristling out, they were very impressive. A lot of the camera work and transitions were all kind of great, and they're kind of hallmarks of, like I said before, what Edgar Wright can do. So yeah, I thought that was fantastic. All the 60s scenes, I really loved it. The only kind of thing at some point I felt like there really needed to be more of a link towards, all right, I'm going into the 60s to figure out what is happening, but then getting more out of what was happening in the 60s and translating that back into present day. I felt like there was a kind of like little breadcrumbs and threads towards the end, but some of it I felt was just like, they could have been doing that more along the way, but I thought the transitions were great.
I don't think they wanted you to figure out what the actual thing that happened.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think
but
they
I felt
wanted
like
to find it was,
I felt like there was a longer than maybe necessary moment where it was like, is this actually her seeing the past and trying to figure out what happened to this person in the past through the present day, or is she having a mental breakdown? Like there was like so much ambiguity for a little bit longer than maybe necessary. They could have like maybe shored that up a little bit quicker and then have more of the mysterious like, oh, who is this? What is this element? Because I felt like that dried up super quick until it was kind of a shotgun ending of like, oh, this is actually what's happened. Bang.
It's funny you say that though, because I pretty much accepted that she just sees ghosts as soon as the film started, solely because of her grandmother being like saying some little line about like seeing her mother and all this. Like the way her grandma talked to her, I was like, oh, this is real. So from then on,
she sees the mother in the mirror. So
yeah, she sees the mother in the mirror, which at first you could just think she's a bit, like maybe she is seeing things. But then the way the grandma's like, you've got that power like your mother had and all this sort of stuff. I was like, I guess this movie's trying to tell me she sees ghosts, and whatever reason my brain was like, all right, that's the logic I'll accept for the rest of this movie.
Yeah, but but is it that, or just like Dexter Morgan seeing his father, and then Deb in the later season? Are they ghosts, or are they just like his projection of what they would be telling him, his own kind of insecurities and message that they would be going through?
In that show, I'm going to say it's his.
Yes. I mean, in that context, like, is that what she's doing as well? Yeah. But I don't know.
I feel like it's because it happens so early in the movie. It's literally in the first scene that they go, hey, she sees ghosts. And because of that, my brain at least, like, it's, your brain was like, no, I don't trust movies. Which is
she's 18 and she's still got an imaginary friend.
Yeah. I was like, yeah.
It's her mum.
I think if they'd had that scene like 20 minutes in, if they'd done it like 20 minutes in and been like, oh, hey, I see ghosts, I would have been like, do you though? Because I've been watching you for 20 minutes and you seem like fine. You may have to talk to someone. You've got issues. But because the movie just starts with, she seems happy-go-lucky and she seems very fine. She seems like she's a very nice, happy girl, has nothing wrong with her life, and she sees ghosts. So I think because of that, I was like, she's fine. She just sees ghosts. Like, it's okay. Like they didn't give me the issue first. They didn't give me any doubt.
I think for me it was like the mum. Your mum committed suicide as well, and she went off to London, and kind of it got to her. I'm like, did she? I guess that the same thing, but I guess
yeah. I mean, both ways are ways to interpret the film. I think
take the film,
which makes it interesting. Honestly, Anya Taylor-Joy, amazing as Sandy. That's her name. Her story just super depressing and sad. Like. You feel like it's super fun and uplifting, and then it takes that turn as soon as the lights go up for that second performance in that theater full of men, which was that's the I feel like that's the point. They started to give away of the way things are starting to turn, even though that performance is very, very well choreographed and everything. But you think it's all going to be good for her, and then it's less very quick downward slope. Yeah, for her.
Especially because she's given that awesome rendition of Downtown, which is fantastic, and it's one of my actually favorite songs growing up with Nan and Popeyes. My first exposure to CDs were like 60s compilation albums, like 4-disc CD compilations, and I'd have them with their CD player on my Discman. So Petula Clark's Downtown was actually one of my favorite songs. The Loving Spoonful, Summer in the City, all that kind of stuff. So instantly, this is like it almost a bit nostalgic for me, throwing it back to my childhood, even though I'm not as old as Edgar Wright growing up. In that era, I still was raised by my grandparents, so I kind of have that same attachment to it as well. So when she started singing Downtown, which I didn't actually realize it was going to be a performance of her in the movie because I hadn't been exposed to too much like marketing material or trailers, so I'm like, oh my god, this is just, I'm melting here. Yeah,
that performance, that scene's great. Anya Taylor-Joy's greatness, like she's in everything. I do think the character gets shafted towards the end. I think it like sort of when it takes and this is the problem with having two characters that are both dealing with a lot, and the film doesn't have time to give both their full arcs and stories. Like obviously it ends up focusing in on the main character and Ellie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then sorry, who's Anya Taylor? What's it?
Sandy.
So Sandy signed it because once Sandy's like the reveal of, oh, she's a sex worker now, the film just sort of like rushes straight through all that and goes, and it fucked her life up, but it doesn't really feel like that does justice to her character, or I guess like someone pushed into being a sex worker in that scenario. Like it just feels like it just sort of rush through this and like, hey, that's fucked up trauma now, I have this, like, and that explains how she gets to where she is at the end of the movie. Like, I get it, but it does feel like there's a bit missing there for that character to get justice.
Yep, I'd agree with that as well.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I feel like you don't want to fill in too many of the blanks with a character like that. It's like, she's... it's kind of like, a murder mystery to a certain degree. You don't want to have too much of the backstory of the person who gets murdered. You want to focus on the people who are figuring out the murder.
Here's another point. So I just assumed the lady downstairs was her straight away.
Oh, okay.
My movie brain went, that's her, because the haircut looks very similar. Like for an older version of what her haircut is. Right? So I'm obsessed with hair in this movie for some reason. Anyway, so then when she dies in that scene, I'm like, guess I'm wrong. And then that lasts for like, 10, 15 minutes? And then I was like, never mind. Okay, whatever.
I mean, that's one hell of a misdirection, just a blatant lie to the audience, isn't it? But it looks like she dies. Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as she meets her, I'm like, oh, that's her, surely. Like, maybe not. I don't know.
No, missed that completely. It was very much a twist to me.
That was my movie brain pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't pick it either. Just because I'm just lost in it. So, that's I guess that's the sum of all its parts. Like sometimes movie brain can turn off if you're tricked enough into being in it.
I think it was the marketing too, because in the trailers they show Jack and then they show the man in white or whatever he's credited as. And they go, look, it's the same guy. And I'm like, nah, red
Terence
herring,
Stamp,
get fucked. Yeah, Terence Stamp. They're like, it's the same guy in the trailer. I'm like, no, it's not. You're trying to trick me. You ain't fooling me. You ain't getting me. There's literally a moment in the trailer where they like fade out from Jack to Terence Stamp. I'm like, nah, it ain't that obvious. Come on now.
No. Okay, so you didn't see that coming, Terence Stamp, the creepy old man, hitting on there.
I didn't know who he was, but I didn't know who he was. I just assumed it was a red herring. Based solely on the trailer.
I mean, yeah.
When they revealed it was a cop, I was like, oh, well, he wasn't acting like a cop. He was acting like a fucking creep.
Yeah, like a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should have picked it because the younger version is played by Sam Claflin, who's like kind of a bigger actor than just your basic extra that the rest of the pundits were. So.
Gee, old mate got messed up too. Out of nowhere.
Yeah. I told Buddy after we watched the movie, I loved like the setup to that, where Ellie almost gets hit by a car like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And then he gets hit out of nowhere.
It's like it's established early in the movie that cabs are dangerous in this town.
London, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty brutal. How do we feel about the reveal that, it turns out it's the scariest thing in the world is middle-aged horny men. They're the real villains, maybe.
It's all out.
They are the real villains.
Yeah, the movie lays it on pretty heavy straight away with the cab driver. Like, and I didn't, like, based solely on the trailers, I didn't think that was the direction it was going to go. Like, I thought it was, like, maybe they'd have, like, a little hint at the sleaziness of man or whatever. But as soon as we got into that cab scene and they do that whole bit, I was like, oh, this is going to be a major theme of this movie now, isn't it? Because it seemed very like more so than just a sly comment, because he says one comment and then he like says something else that's weird, and then by the time you get to you've got nice legs for it, or like, is there other models in that place? I was like, fuck, we're still going, and this is really uncomfortable. Like, yeah, which was the point, but yeah.
I definitely pictured it to be there like the Californian like dream, the Hollywood dream. Kind of go out there and that kind of swallow you up and eat you whole, kind of like your Neon Demon or your Mulholland Drive, without being like hyper crazy, or even La La Land. But whether it becomes a good ending or a bad ending.
Yeah, Mulholland Drive and Neon Demon were the exact 2 movies I was like thinking about. As, like if you was to make a sort of
analogies
trilogy.
To what the theme was, but I didn't expect it to kind of be this strong feminist, anti misogynist kind of messaging that was through it. And I know some people have criticized that it is like a feminist light movie because of how they kind of throw it back down, and in the end it's kind of still misogynist in the way that females are treated with, you know, kind of how it ends and stuff. But I thought I didn't get that at all. I thought it was still quite, you know.
No, I think the important thing is that, so when all the guy ghosts come in, they're like, help us. Her character doesn't suddenly go, oh my god, I feel so sorry for you.
Bad.
Like she has the scene where she's like Sandy comes in and she still feels sorry for Sandy because she knows what she's been through. She knows that it's that whole, you know, like what's the saying, like you know, hurt people or whatever. It doesn't mean it's okay, but you know, hurt people. And she feels sorry for a degree. And then when she says they deserved it, she does say, I know. So she doesn't say, no, they didn't. Or they didn't deserve this, or, you know, something very much along those lines. It was like, no, they did. But, you know, maybe don't kill them.
maybe killing them isn't the solution. Yeah.
Or maybe don't kill me. I mean.
Yeah, I didn't do anything wrong.
Maybe kill Jack because he seemed like he was going to kill you, but like.
Yeah. It's like. It's the fucked up thing is she was putting him in the slats of the house, right? That was
explains the smell.
In the wall.
She's like, it'll smell like garlic.
Yeah, it'll smell bad at like the start. It's like, fucking hell, yeah. Buddy, as someone who didn't guess that Diana Riggs was Sandy all along, what did you think of the reveal?
Oh yeah, I thought it was good. I was kind of really wondering, like, okay, who's the killer? Who's going to be this guy? Killer that eventually killed her, because it is weird that we do see her death and her graphic death, so there's kind of really no reason to kind of question.
I'd actually go.
Oh, she's alive.
To go back and watch it again, like whether it was just our minds playing.
Yeah,
like,
I'd love to see it again.
You never actually saw her die. Yeah,
never see her get actually physically stabbed. You just see the blood and her on the bottom screaming. Is it her just screaming? And like, yeah, maybe that's just some good trickery, good cinematography, and good, you know, tricks that
playing
way.
On our expectations and stuff.
Yeah, so for me, I was like, there's no real reason to question why this would be some kind of twist ending, other than it be a twist ending that's not how it went, and it could be, you know, the killer was alive, or still it just wasn't that guy that got hit by the car or something. But then, like, putting my movie brain on, I was like, there is no plausible character that we've been introduced to yet that it could be, like a male-centric character that it could be, because that guy died, and everyone else is of a younger age. That's you know, like John, he's studying at the thing, so it's obviously not him. It's none of the girls that are at the academy. There's no real other older male figure in this other than the cab driver, who I guess wouldn't be there, and he was only featured at the start.
That would be a twist.
That would have been a shittier twist. So for me, I was like, okay, they're really not going to resolve this at all. There's no male character, so that's why I guess there's no reason really for me to question it. But it makes sense now. You put your movie brain on, there's only so many characters that get introduced, and by deduction, you know, people that are of importance have to be there. So, it's just the graphic death that kind of put me off. But I did like the idea that she had kind of taken power back by getting her revenge on these people, and that are kind of symptomatic of how she was treated then, and probably how all women were treated in that time frame in the 60s, and kind of you know, were they being kind of held down, and traditional female roles that are kind of outdated in the way they were treated, and just like a piece of meat really. Then the town kind of chewed them up and spit them out. So I like the idea that it was kind of there's a lack of consent, and that you're just kind of forced to do what you're doing, and kind of make ends meet in this town. You have to do the dirty things that, you know, the power or corruption, like you kind of like your Harvey Weinstein things to get ahead, but almost taking that power back by killing them. Obviously, that's still a bad thing, but it was a kind of a good twist, and kind of I don't know. I'm still trying to I still try to process it. I'd love to watch it again, but
yeah, absolutely. We'll say Matt Smith, pretty great as well. Like, he was super charming to start off with, you know, and then he does turn, like most of his characters since Doctor Who have been pretty evil. Trying to break away from that. Also, John, the kid, he was great through the film as well, you know. The one nice guy.
I was like, don't fucking die, please.
Yeah, please don't die.
I'll tell you what, though. So he was really good. Character's really good. A decision was made at some point. I just don't think anyone questioned if it was a good choice or not, because I was like, wow, I cannot believe you're doing this right now. Which is, they have a scene in which a white girl who's having sex with a black man freaks the fuck out. She's screaming like someone's hurt her, and then someone else comes in. I'm like, wow, he's about to be arrested and charged, and everyone's going to assume he did it because black man, race. I was like, what? And it doesn't go there because I don't think anyone making this film thought about this. However, this is definitely a thing of like
I don't know. His reaction, like to it, was like, "Oh fuck,
I guarantee
this could go very badly." Yeah,
I would guarantee. I can't guarantee. I would be fucking surprised if any black person watching this film does not sit there and go, "Fuck," like because that's all I'll say. I was like, "This is a choice."
They're trying to get. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think it's a reaction trying to get. I think they didn't think about how that scene would potentially come across, and they just did it like it was any other scene. However, I think in the year 2021, when we're still like facing certain issues, that scene does bring up certain discussions and things that I don't think it meant to, and it would amongst some people. But I mean, I'm not saying this is a negative for the movie or like anything like that. It was just like I was like, for a split moment, I was like, I don't know if that was right. Like, I don't know if we should have done that.
I question it when it happened. I was like, "Oh, you're really going to do this too?" Because I was like, you know, how you're doing the whole kind of female empowerment and kind of being held down in this and stuff, and then you're going to sprinkle that in there, like kind of racist and how minorities are treated and traditional gender roles in the past and all that kind of power dynamic. I was like, but then they didn't really go anywhere with it either. It was just like, here's a thing that happens quickly and don't really address too much of it. It was interesting.
I don't know. It almost feels like the movie was written. That scene was just written, and then they were like, and this may sound bad, but I do think this is how it happens. I think they wrote the movie. That character was just a character. They've then cast whoever for the role, and they've cast someone who's of color, and then that scene, because it's not a white person, just plays a lot differently than if they,
Is that a good thing or a bad thing that they, just cast a black person and didn't really care?
I don't think it's a good or a bad. I just think it's an interesting discussion point that, like, if I had have read that scene after, they're like, hey, here's the scene, and I read it, and I was like, I would have been like, cool, all right. And if they'd come back a month later and said, we've cast this person, I would be like, the scene plays a lot differently now with the person you've cast. Like, I feel like no one maybe brought that discussion up, and if they did, they were like, "No, it's fine. No one will notice." But I'll put money that people will notice. Like, I haven't done the rounds, but I'd be shocked if I can't find a forum with someone discussing this already.
Yeah,
I'd be shocked.
I mean, maybe it's different in Britain.
Racism's everywhere, Ash.
I mean, yeah, but I don't think cops are like killing black people.
Well, they would if they had guns. They just beat them.
It's a bit easier to run away from them, yeah. I feel like I want to bring up the cinematography again. This movie looks beautiful. Like, he was at Chung Hung Chung, who's done like a bunch of different beautiful Chung Hun. No, yeah, who's done like Last Night in Soho. No. Who's done Me, Earl and the Dying Girl, The Handmaiden, a bunch of like Park Chan-wook's previous films. Like even the aesthetic of like her room when she goes to sleep with like the neon light outside. Like,
yeah, I love all that.
Looks really cool.
We got that recently with Malignant as well.
Yeah,
and how that kind of used the colors, like natural, like modern day neons to kind of create this giallo aspect that kind of Edgar Wright has said that's one of the influences of this movie, as well as kind of like your Hitchcock movies as well. So that was pretty cool. Where it didn't fully go into like the horror giallo aspect, but still kind of had that like mystery noir part of it.
I'll just say quickly as a side note, since like you just said who it was, I was like, oh fuck yeah, like Park Chan-wook's like that's the cinematographer, like, and he's done most of his movies. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. Like, what else has he got coming up?
Uncharted.
I just look Uncharted and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, get that money.
Yeah, get that money. That's fine.
Anything else you guys want to talk about from last night in Soho?
All right. I would say I didn't love the ending. Is the other thing I'd say. Like, and by the ending, I mean the last scene in particular. It felt almost too tie ribbon on it. Like, and especially because I'm watching this entire scene going, yeah, when's she going to snap out of this dream? You know, like, I didn't buy it. And then the movie credits ended and I'm like, oh, it was real. I guess, like, it just seemed almost too, and everyone's happy ever after. And, you know, she's even seeing Sandy in her mirror dream ghost world thing now, who as a younger version, not her actual older version, which, sure. Yeah. That was the only thing. I didn't love that last scene.
Yeah.
Because also the bully was nice to her. So maybe it was.
No, she wasn't. All the other girls were nice to her. Like, she
walks past her and she gives her a nod or something.
What, at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she knows that she has the power to be stabbed in the face by her. That's why. And she didn't get expelled from the academy. She's basically fucking bulletproof.
Anytime.
See how I almost killed you and I'm still here? I have that power. I can kill you if you want. I'd still be here. That's kind of the things that are frustrated me. That she almost stabbed that girl in the face, which is kind of like, ooh, do I have sympathy for you now? I'm trying to feel for you when you're in this crisis of whether it's a mental problem or or being haunted. That was one less like, ugh, what the fuck moment. And then at the end, it's like, how did you not get expelled by that? There was like 20 or 30 witnesses. I'm just supposed to celebrate your fashion show now because you survived this haunting and terrible situation.
I was seeing ghosts. Turns out the landlady was actually a killer.
I suppose they can prove that, but does that excuse like almost killing a fellow classmate? I don't think so. And then you were talking about the scene before, Dylan.
But
about,
she didn't. That's the key thing.
Yeah, when she was took John back up to the room, and that whole was a little bit. I'm not sure about that. And then for me, the ending, it was like a bit of a shotgun wild type thing. And I might have wanted more, like I said before, more piecing together of something actually is happening in the real world, and I need to investigate that more instead of that kind of being like a small smidgen at the end and then the wild ending. But I say all that, and I'd still give it a 9 out of 10 or 4.5 stars out of 5. Like I said, if you're an Edgar Wright fan and you love like the soundtracks and the smoke and the mirrors and the kind of all the cinematography and all that fun stuff and kind of can overlook some narrative blemishes, I think you can love it. If you generally don't like Wright movies or you find that those things can't be kind of thrown back into the back of your mind and they do kind of annoy you somewhat, then you may struggle. So I can see I can see why this is so divisive amongst
it's interesting It's interesting you say that though, because I would say Edgar Wright fans, primarily Edgar Wright fans, wouldn't like this.
Yeah, because
it's so different.
Yeah, and that's right. I guess you've got two variations of Edgar Wright fans: your Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and the other
Scott
one, the
Pilgrim
trilogy.
Yeah,
World's End.
Yeah, so all those ones are kind of co-written by Simon Pegg, and then some of the other stuff that isn't co-written by Simon Pegg, like you'd have Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, that was just him, but then you had the source material which you could feed off anyway, Brian Lee O'Malley, and then you also had Baby Driver, which he did without Simon Pegg. So maybe some of those Wright fans that like that trilogy don't like these movies as much, and kind of, I know there is this criticism of like, well, Edgar Wright's not really that good without Simon Pegg, but I guess for me, yeah, I know, but like you look at Baby Driver now, if you can watch Kevin Spacey movies.
I've not really watched it.
I haven't watched it since the cinema. So.
Or Ansel, for all that matter.
Yeah.
But like if you watch that's great soundtrack. There's it's cool shots, cool one shots, a lot of cool scenes. But there's a little bit of holes in the story as well, and it kind of gets a bit wild. But
yeah, well, I mean, even before the Kevin Spacey stuff, I thought Baby Driver was like I think I came out going like a 7.
Yeah, see, I thought it was great, and I can understand that it has all these like things that about it that can, there's justifiable criticisms. But once again, if it's the rest of the stuff, like I said, the smoke and the mirrors or the fancy stuff,
all the style,
all the style points. That's right, style of substance or full substance. So if you can look past that because of all the stylish stuff, and that's what you're a fan of, then then I guess you already know whether you're going to like this or not. With you, if you could get through Baby Driver or Scott Pilgrim, they go through 7 evil X's in this space of like 90 minutes. There's like fucking no real story depth. It's just like video game level. But yeah,
Sandy goes through 7 evil X's in this in about 7 minutes too. Actually, there's that. So what the one last scene I just remembered I want to shout out because of the sound design thing. I think it's that scene where Sandy's like laying there in the bed and you have like the ghostly figures walking up saying like, "What's your name?" or "That's a really nice name," whatever. Like the sound design on that was really good. Like my cinema has like average sort of cinema speakers or whatever, but I was still like, "Oh, this is very good." Like the way everything was laid and it sort of crept around the entire room and everything. It was quite creepy and stood out because I don't mind if a scene takes me out to go like, "Oh, that's a good sound design," like every now and then, like that sort of thing. But yeah, that was one.
2 last things. I think it's interesting, like at the start of the film, there's like this probably thing that like, I'd be interested to see the reaction in America if it plays the same, but like she makes that joke about her wanting to, she's basing her life on Kylie, and Ellie Eloise goes, "Minogue." And she goes, "No, Jenna." It's like, does that joke play in America? I don't know. But our audience cracked up as a high point. And then the number one jump scare of this film is like,
the guy?
She thinks she's out of the dream, and then the guy touches her shoulder. It's like,
hand
I think
up,
the collective
got me.
audience.
I jumped. I did
Yeah, I think like we were in a packed cinema. It was like everybody was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, pretty great. All right, let us know what you thought of Last Night in Soho by going to explosion.com/Twitter or explosion.com/Discord, letting us know on either of those 2 platforms. Buddy, where can people find you on the internet?
I don't want them to find me on the internet. I'm a mystery wrapped in an enigma. If you want to find me on the internet, you need to kind of hire out a spare apartment, a spare room in an apartment, and then have vivid, haunting dreams over the space of a week that will finally reveal my true destination. At Buddy Watson 12 on Twitter.
Of course, you can find Radio Watson at radio-watson.simplecast.com. If you want to help us out, hear what you want to watch, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser, or leave Radio Watson one of those reviews as well. He's doing great work over there. And if you
the
like
reviews will affect that.
yeah, balance things out. And if you like this episode, those with $1, head on over to our Ko-fi page at explosionhour.com/support. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess.